School Wrestling Preview Show here on 1410 KGRM. It's time to talk South Tama Wrestling with head coach for the Trojans, Nate Van Dyke. And, Coach, certainly a tough way for you to start your season with South Tama now, as we speak, 100% virtual. So no practices. That sort of started on the 16th, the same day that practice started. Maybe even I think it started before then. But regardless, no practice is for you. So what is your thought process as you come into a new season?
I guess it's just been a different type of start to a season. Just like you said, we haven't been in practice yet, Chris, but we're just kind of focusing on things we can control. We know that we're not on any board, or we don't make any of these decisions, whether we're virtual or not, or whether you have to wear a mask here or there or not. So we're just kind of focusing on doing what we can do kind of on our own, just encouraging them to go on runs, things like that. But I'm not worried about starting the season 2 weeks late, missing 2 weeks of practice. It's a long season the way it is. So I think there's some good that we can take away from it as well.
Yeah, kind of partially answer my next question is that what have you been able to do in the meantime to stay in touch with your wrestlers, encourage them to continue to work out, and what have you been able to accomplish, if anything, here the last couple of weeks or so?
Well, I don't think we've accomplished much as far as getting better at wrestling. I just had a virtual meeting with the team. We've got our body fat testing done, so that's about it at this point. But just like I told the team, I'm not super worried about missing a couple weeks. If we miss another week, good. It is what it is. It's a long season, so maybe a positive that can come out of it is injury management. You get a long season. At some point, you're managing injuries, and you're dealing with just a long season where guys get burnt out. They don't want to come to practice every day in January. And anybody who's been through a high school season, that's a pretty normal thing. And as I got to talking about it with the team there, there's been a lot of situations where I know of teammates from high school, from college, kids that I've coached that have wrestled even half of a season and been highly successful. So I'm not worried about it. We're going to focus on what we can control at this point. There could be some instances early in the season where, we haven't had as much practice or we haven't been on the mat as much, but maybe we go against a team that has been on the mat a little bit more, and maybe we take a lump there. It's not as pretty as it should be, but the focus has to be the end goal, the long-term goal, which is, the end of the season and the postseason success.
Absolutely. So as it stands right now, with South Tama scheduled to come back into school on the 30th, how would that affect the start of your season? Are you going to take some time before you start, where you actually get into a meet?
We're scheduled to wrestle a big, 32-team tournament at Independence with teams that are from out of state and things like that. That first weekend in December. So we're not going to do that. I don't feel confident that I can get my varsity wrestlers, even if I took a skeleton crew there, ready to compete in just 4 days of practice. It's a 2-day tournament. So looks like we're probably not going to do that one. But then the following week, that second week in December, we're scheduled to wrestle a home double duel with Vinton and CCA. And then we've got a home dual tournament that Saturday. So I'm planning on wrestling those. If we're not to where we need to be exactly, then we can use it as a practice. I think it's a win-win. We can get better by competing.
Yeah, that sounds like a great plan to take that first week, get into the practice room, see what you got, and then go from there after that. Certainly when you look at kids coming back for you this year, I mean, you only had a couple of seniors on last year's squad. You got to be excited a little bit with the talent that's going to be in the room whenever you get into the room.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of experience, and we had a little bit more success at the end of the year individually last year, and we did qualify for regional duels as well last year. So we've got, I think, 10 starters returning, most of them juniors and seniors for the most part. But then there's probably 3 or 4 spots where you're going to see some freshmen in the lineup, some underclassmen, or even some older kids who haven't been in the lineup, don't have that varsity experience yet. And to be honest, without being on the mat, I don't know exactly who they are. We've got a big freshman contingent this year, coming from a big 8th grade class from last year. And I haven't worked with them too much. I've seen them wrestle a little bit, but it'll be exciting to kind of mix those 10 returners with those young guys.
Well, let's talk about one guy in particular who always catches my eye, and that's Peyton Best. I'm certainly a fan of his, and I loved his run last year at the state tournament in the consolation round. He lost in the first round of the state, and then just started. He was like a pin machine in the comp heat. And eventually finished up fourth. He wrestled at 182 a year ago. What do you see? And of course, earlier this week he was named on first team All State for football as a returner. So he obviously had a good football season. What do you see from Peyton in his senior year?
Yeah, Peyton Vest, just a really good athlete. Congratulations to him, obviously, for that first team All State for football. And wow, that was so exciting at the end of the year. He put on that run. He drew the eventual state champ in the first round from Eddyville Blakesburg, but then he, I've never seen him wrestle up like that up to that point. And sometimes you can get on a roll down there at state, and he definitely has the talent and the athleticism to wrestle that way. But to be knocking off, second-ranked kids in the state, things like that on that run to fourth place, that was one of those times when you get down there, and then all of a sudden everything just kind of falls into place. So he's going to be exciting to watch. When Peyton Vest goes out there and wrestles, there's going to be points scored. It's not going to be a 2-1 decision or even a 5-2 decision. There's going to be points put up. He's going to throw some caution to the wind, and it's going to be exciting. He's definitely not afraid to let the fur fly.
Yeah. Another guy, Logan Arp, he had a good state tournament for you. I think it was like fifth place in state, 126 pounds last year, 34 wins. A year ago was a sophomore. This kid's an up-and-comer for you, I would imagine. Yeah,
Logan loves the sport of wrestling. Logan Arp loves the sport of wrestling. He's a student of the game, works hard in the room. Fifth place last year. We saw it coming. We knew he had that ability. He had a tough district to get through. He wrestled very well at districts just to get there, and he lost first round at state too, and had to come back all the way through the wrestlebacks to get fifth. So he showed some resilience. And once you get an underclassman down there and you have them for 2 more years, they kind of know what to expect. So a lot of times you can kind of build on some of that early success. But he's got a whole bag of tricks. He's got a lot of techniques. Hopefully, and we think he's just going to keep improving. Mm-hmm.
Right. And then a couple of seniors, Brayton Smith and Caleb Schrock. Smith last year made it to state at 170 pounds. And Caleb, we know, he had 28 wins a year ago. What do you see from each one of these two kids, kind of 2-year leaders in that room as well?
Sure. Braden Smith, like you said, qualified for state a year ago. He's been a starter in the lineup for 3 years, going into his senior season here. He's we talked about before the season, he has the potential for 100 high school wins. He's gotten a little bit better every year. With this season being cut short, and we could be off and on due to the COVID, but so maybe we focus more on his end of season goals as far as Braden goes. But yeah, and he had a good football season too, and he got down to state last year, so you get a little bit of a taste of it, and maybe your goals change a little bit. Your senior year, you see guys just get on a roll and do some of their best wrestling their senior year sometimes. As far as Schrock goes, Caleb Schrock, he's been our 220-pounder. He didn't start wrestling until his sophomore year, so a couple of years ago, and he's a senior now. He was kind of backdoored into a state qualifying position his first year out for wrestling. His sophomore year, he got slammed. He qualified for districts, but then he got slammed and when it was unable to go on. So I guess you could say he was a state qualifier. And if you talk to him, he would admit that he doesn't really feel like he earned it. He didn't compete due to head injury that happened as a result of the slam. But then he was back. He qualified for districts again last year as a junior, second-year wrestler. Just a great kid. He listens to whatever you say. It's amazing how much wrestling he's absorbed in just 2 years. He's a leader for us in the room as well. And he qualified for state. He qualified for state and districts the last 2 years at 285, wrestling undersized. And hopefully it looks like he'll be our 220-pounder this year. So wrestling more in his weight range, I guess.
I'm excited to see what Caleb can do. I mean, I was at the gym when he got slammed a couple of years ago. And like you say, inexperienced at the time and obviously couldn't wrestle at state, so he didn't have a chance to at least experience that. But it's going to be interesting to see how he responds now. Of course, that happened 2 years ago. when he was a sophomore, but still raw and but full of talent, a lot of a good athlete. So I'm kind of excited to see what he can do this year. So I brought up a few of your guys. I mean, obviously you look like you're solid with numbers coming back. Who are some other guys that we should be on the lookout for this year?
I would say just going through our other kind of returning wrestlers, varsity wrestlers. Brody Chima is a senior, and he's been our starter at 106 for 3 years, and he'll be back at 106 pounds this year for us. The last couple of years he's won 30 matches. You know, his sophomore year he won about 30 matches. His junior year he won about 30 matches. So you put a senior down at 106 and someone who's had 3 years of varsity wrestling, you're gonna be able to hold your own down there at that weight class. So he's a senior at 106 pounds. Let's see. Kyler Smith was a district qualifier for us last year. I think he qualified for districts at 132, if my memory serves me right. So he was a district qualifier for us. He's been a 2-year starter. He's now a junior. Brady Node has been another one that's started for 3 years for us, and he'll be a senior. I think his freshman year was his first year wrestling, so it'll be fun to see his growth. And just like Caleb, he's grown every year. And then another one, Bowden Kaler, looks like he'll be wrestling about 160 pounds, so he grew a little bit. He wrestled 145 for us last year. He started for us for 2 years, and he's got a lot of work ethic. He's a sponge. He soaks up whatever you're trying to teach him. He's won tournaments before, so another solid wrestler in the lineup returning for us. And then the last returning starter would be just a sophomore at heavyweight by the name of Rudy Papaki. And he and Schrock were both 220-pounders last year, so we kind of moved them back and forth. And he was undefeated until sectionals. And I had him wrestling some junior varsity and some varsity, but he was like 13-0 on varsity, and they ended up not quite qualifying for districts, but ended up with a record of 15-2. So he now isn't a 220-pounder anymore. He's now a 250-pound athlete who will be able to compete with those big boys a little bit more, hopefully. So we're excited about Rudy at heavyweight as well.
Very good. And any young and up-and-coming wrestlers, freshmen or sophomores, you think could make an impact this year?
It's hard to say. Oh, I did forget. Ethan Crookshank is a sophomore as well. He started for us last year, and he was about 500. So he put some time in over the summer. He went to some camps over the summer. So there's another one that's coming back for us. As far as freshmen, like I said, we've got about 15, 20 freshmen coming in from a big 8th grade class last year. You'll probably see it about when I do, because we're only going to have about a week and a half of practice before we hit some competition. So there's a few weight classes where, honestly, without being in the room, I'm not sure. I'm not sure who's going to win some spots, but I'm super excited to see who kind of rises there.
Yeah, and we never know with the COVID situation, if somebody's got to go into quarantine for whatever reason, you got to be ready to get the mat, no matter what happens there. So
yep, could create an opportunity for somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. So give me your overall keys for this team. I mean, you mentioned you made it to regional duels last year. You got a lot of talent coming back. I think only losing about 3 seniors from last year's squad. So there's got to be a lot of high hopes for this team. You know, overall, what's going to be some of your goals for this team this year?
Last year we finished our 10th straight winning season at South Tama, so we're kind of proud of that a little bit. Just as far as the tradition goes, we're generally winning about 60% of our duels, which it isn't bad, but we'd like to improve upon that. You know, if we've got 4 or 5 unknowns in the starting lineup, and it could be a crazy season. We could have people in and out of the lineup. You'd love to be able to say you can put your strongest team on the mat every single time, but someone gets quarantined, and it changes things a little bit. But I would say we've got 3 returning state qualifiers. You throw a couple of these other district qualifiers in there, and the goal is 4+ state qualifiers, 4+ state place winners. You know, if you qualify, once you get down there, you might as well place. And depending on the dual team we can put out there, that state duel's been, I guess, one of my personal goals as a coach since I started as a head coach here at South Tama, and we've been we've been to regional duels 3 or 4 times, but we've come up, a match or 2 short the times we qualified for that. So I would say state duels. I would say 4+ qualifiers, 4+ state place winners. I still want my junior varsity athletes to get 20+ matches, even with some meets being canceled. I think it's important for them as far as being the future of our team, to get those matches in. And when you go out for wrestling, you want to wrestle. You don't want to just sit behind the varsity guys. So that's an important thing to us as well.
Well, I think you got a strong team here, Coach, and you just got to get on the mat.
Yeah, we're excited to get back on the mat. That's for sure, Chris.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, really appreciate your time here on our high school wrestling preview show, and best of luck to you and your Trojans throughout the upcoming season. Thanks so much.
All right, we appreciate it.
Nate Van Dyke, head coach for South Tama Wrestling, with us here on 1410 KGRM.